Hello, my friends. Thanks for joining me today. So the topic of this video is our family history, our DNA, our genes. I'd like to take a minute or two to explore just how much our DNA actually impacts how healthy we are, as well as what kinds of ailments or illnesses we might face or expect to have to deal with as we age. In this little exploration, I'm going to kind of look at things both from a common sense perspective as well as a scientific perspective. So I hope it helps. So if you've read my book, you know I talk about my dad and I tell his story, not only of his brain cancer, but also of what a great man he was. Certainly the best man I've ever known. Here's a picture of my dad just a few months before he passed in a wheelchair. He's 64 in this picture. Here's a picture of me 1 year younger at 63. Now, without much overthinking, I think most people would have to at least consider that the idea that DNA and genes don't fully explain our situations or our health at roughly the same age. You know, in my book, I say that for the most part, my dad and others of his generation, they did the best they could with what they knew at the time. They simply didn't know what they didn't know. Conversely, you and I have had the benefit of many more years of scientific discovery. And I've certainly had a lot of good fortune when it comes to my health. But still, I think any reasonable person would have to agree the differences are dramatic. And that certainly means our DNA and our genome aren't the whole story when it comes to our health, or even, I would argue, the most important story. Or is it? You see, when it comes to our DNA and our genome, there's another factor that we must consider, another genome, if you will. And I talk about it in chapter 2 of my book. So what is it? It's our epigenome. The prefix epi means above. So if you think of your DNA or genes as like the plastic or metal, the hardware portion of your computer, the epigenome is the software, the part of the computer that tells the hardware what to do, how to act. In simple terms, the epigenome sits on top of our genome and determines to some extent what genes are turned on or turned off. That is, how our genes or DNA behave. So what are the epigenetic triggers that tell our genes what to do? Well, based on the science and what we know, they're the environmental factors, both internal and external, that we're exposed to. Think of the external environment as like perhaps the air pollution or the chemicals or the microplastics that you're exposed to in your home or work environment. Conversely, think of the stress or the food you're eating or the exercise or sleep you may not be getting as creating and impacting the internal environment in very real ways that it seems can end up triggering certain genes that otherwise might not have been turned on or off. And then there's our own psychological or mental environment, the trauma we've carried from the past, or the thoughts we have that trap us or hold us back, or on the flip side, drive us forward toward higher achievement. That's right, my friend, we can actually pass on the effects of childhood trauma to our children and their children from one generation to the next. You know, there really is so much left to learn and so much discovery yet to be made. The bottom line, and what I hope you'll get from this video, is that our genes and DNA really load the gun, but it's our lifestyle and the choices we make and our internal and external environment that can end up pulling the trigger and determining just how healthy we are as we age.